Welcome into A to Z Sports Prime Time on a Thursday evening. Hope everybody is having a great night so far. We are going to get into a discussion about some player availability for the Titans. Only one player ruled out at this time for the Jags game, but a couple of questionable designations, including wide receiver Treylon Burks, that I think it's worth discussing. We will talk about the opportunity for this win and in game that the Titans will play in just about 48 hours from now, a little less than 48 hours from now, and try and make the postseason at this point. And of course, because it is the Thursday show, we will have a weekend bounce back come your way, and we'll discuss who needs to bounce back the most in sports. Before we get started, though, need you guys to share this show on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and on Twitch. If you're hanging out with us on Twitter, please retweet the show in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen. If you are on Facebook Live, you can share now to public. That's in the bottom left. If you are on YouTube or on Twitch, you can get into, you can like the video, you can subscribe to the channel, and we will discuss at length together all the different things that Mike Vrabel had to say about the status of his rookie wide receiver. Now that more of you are here, more of you continue to trickle in as the discussion gets going, and we will see what we'll talk about this game. We'll see what's left to be said at the end of it, and then we'll head on to Jacksonville tomorrow and cover this game between the Titans and the Jags. Welcome into A to Z Sports Prime Time from the Superbook Sports Studios. I'm your host, Buck Rising, if you're new to the show, and I'm proud as always to be presented to you by our friends at TrueMav Fitness. TrueMav Fitness in the Gulch. That's where you go to get your New Year's resolution started. Your first workout is free as a Middle Tennessee resident at TrueMavFitness.com. Superbook Sports, get in on all the action with the best sports book out there. Whether you're betting football, hockey, basketball, or any other major sport, Superbook Sports is your place to go. The Ashton Real Estate Group of RE/MAX Advantage, the intel edge you need to succeed. Go to GaryAshton.com to get involved and maximize your real estate investment in this red-hot Nashville real estate market. And Two Rivers Ford in Mount Juliet, where the 2023 model year Fords are available right now for you to test drive. In-stock inventory available at Two Rivers Ford in Mount Juliet or online at tworiversford.com. So obviously there was a fair amount of concern around Treylon Burks yesterday, given that he showed up on the injury report for the first time this week with a groin injury that he had previously not been dealing with. Now, at this point, it looks like Treylon Burks is going to be available for this game based on what his head coach had to say today. But it's something that it's something to continue to monitor, given that he still has a questionable designation next to his name. He makes a big difference, obviously, for this offense. And, you know, I think that there needs to be a discussion had. There needs to be a discussion had about Treylon Burks and, you know, kind of where his standing is right now with this team and how the Treylon Burks experience has gone so far. In fact, I want to change, producer Reed, the Two Rivers Ford take to start this show, given what we know about Treylon Burks right now. There is a high percentage chance that Treylon Burks ends up playing. So the question that I would like to ask you guys at this point is, how big a difference does Treylon Burks make to this Titans offense? You can give me your response on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch. How big of a difference does Treylon Burks make in this Titans offense based on what we've seen? There's a lot of different elements to this, right? We know that Josh Dobbs got a far greater amount of pass catchers involved in the Titans' last game against the Cowboys. It was a losing effort. They still lost by 14 points. They are not an overwhelmingly talented team, even with Burks on the field, right? We all know their deficiencies. We know what their offensive line situation looks like. We know what the quarterback deal is. We know that Derrick Henry, while he's still shown some superhuman abilities at times, he hasn't been getting enough help this season, and obviously it's not been good enough. And also, he's had turnovers that have been costly at this point. But how big of a difference does Treylon Burks make in this Titans offense moving forward? We'll discuss on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch. It's your Two Rivers Ford take, made possible by Two Rivers Ford. Two Rivers Ford is where you go for the best car buying experience possible. Satisfaction is what they pride themselves on with their award-winning customer service and quality American-made Ford vehicles. Their in-stock inventory right now is available for you to test drive on the lot. Whether it's an Explorer like I drive, a Bronco Sport like you see on the graphic in front of you, an F-150 Escape or Mustang Mach-E. Two Rivers Ford is your place to get the best value for your vehicle and the best quality product out there with Ford. Two Rivers Ford in Mount Juliet or online at tworiversford.com. So how big of a difference does Treylon Burks make in this Titans offense? I think that there's a couple of different ways that you have to look at this so far. So we know what the primary limitation is right now. Outside of being without their starting quarterback, their tackle situation is a mess. It is difficult for them to have any kind of a functional passing game, given how much Dennis Daly struggles. NPF has not been overwhelmingly good, I would say. He has been a starter. He's a rookie, and I think you have to grade on that curve. But obviously, they need a lot of help right now, and that is not something that he has been regularly able to provide. He's had penalties. He obviously missed the last game against the Cowboys because they were resting him. It's my understanding it's not guaranteed that he plays in this game, but he has a better chance to be able to go, and was ruled questionable, as was Treylon Burks. But Treylon Burks, I think, to look at it in kind of where the Titans are right now, I think there's one thing that you have to keep in mind. But here was Mike Vrabel asked about Treylon Burks as well as an injury update for the rest of the roster.
How's Treylon, Mike?
Well, I think he'll be okay. We held him out today.
Anybody else?
Devontae Harris.
It's a much shorter list than we've had in recent weeks.
Probably.
Kind of give the team a bit of a lift, you think, too, I guess, energy-wise?
I hope playing for the division and opportunity to be in the playoffs gives us a lift. Just the opportunity. I want to be excited. That's the whole thing that we talked about this week, is about being excited about the opportunity, embracing the opportunity. So it seems like we've done that so far.
Coach, while you were at practice.
So Alex Blaine Manns, that was Mike Vrabel speaking to the media earlier today. Alex Blaine Manns says there's no reason why Burks shouldn't play. It could be the last game of the season. He needs to suck it up. Well, that's easy for you to say, who's not a professional athlete, who's not dealing with a groin injury, and has, not been a rookie wide receiver who struggled with a variety of different injuries this year. I appreciate your toughness from the sidelines or from the couch or from, the comfort of your living room, wherever you are making that comment, the idea that the professional athlete needs to be the one to suck it up. If he's not physically right, he shouldn't be out there. If he's well enough to play and they medically clear him and he says, Coach, I'm good to go, then that's his decision. I think that's nonsensical. That the attitude should be, he needs to suck it up. Well, why? From a lot of you, based on a lot of the interactions that I've had with you this past week, and really throughout the course of this last month and a half on a 6-game losing streak, many of you want this team to just tank for a better draft pick. So I find it curious that you would that there would also be a desire for the athlete to suck it up when, many of you are just like, oh, it doesn't matter. They're not going to do anything in the playoffs anyway. They should tank for a top 10 draft pick, blah, blah, blah. And so now it immediately turns. To he needs to suck it up. It could be the last game of the season. Frankly, I think that's trash. Now, if he wants to play and he's ready to go and he's medically cleared, then gravy, baby. But I think that the rest of that as analysis, that to me is largely trash. He needs to suck it up. It could be the last game of the season. Okay, well, that's very convenient of you to say. A to Z Sports Primetime is presented by Superbook Sports. That's where you go to wager on the Titans and the Jaguars. Currently Jags -6 in the Superbook Sports app, or any of the pivotal Week 18 games that are on the horizon. Superbook Sports gives you the opportunity to take the fight to the best odds makers on the Strip. No odds makers from across the pond setting lines for American sports, just the best group of odds makers on the Strip at the main Superbook in Las Vegas, giving you the opportunity to take it to the house. They'll match your first bet up to $1,000, win or lose. So download the Superbook Sports app today. Go to superbook.com for terms and conditions. Gambling problem? Call the Tennessee Red Line, 1-800-889-9789. So it's a positive development. So it's a positive development that Treylon Burks, it's more precautionary situation than what I think initially some of the fears might have been, right? Some of the injuries these guys play through, says Deion Bonner, and deal with, most of us would call in to work on short-term disability. Let's see. Tank your way out of here if you think that way, says Arya's dad on YouTube. It's about culture. And Alex responds, which, is a fair assessment from a lot of people. He gets paid a lot of money. That's why. Well, in retrospect, he really doesn't get paid that much money compared to, the average NFL wide receiver. Actually, the average NFL wide receiver is probably not a fair assessment, but like on the scale of wide receiver pay grades, Treylon Burks is making relatively little. So I appreciate that you're willing to sacrifice his body for his paycheck. But, I think that anytime the paycheck of a professional athlete gets brought up, I don't, I understand, why some people have that response. But the more time that I spend around this stuff, that response seems to come from, and please don't take this the wrong way. I'm not speaking specifically about Alex or just generally. I think that thought process is from, people who are not going to make that kind of money in their life, and, would love to, as many of us would, as all of us would like to make the paycheck of a professional athlete in ways that you think money makes everything better. And then I would cite to you immediately the example of what we all just witnessed with Damar Hamlin on the field and say, well, yes, is the possibility of cardiac arrest based on a routine hit, does the money justify everything that Damar Hamlin just went through as a 6th-round pick who's not making very much money? Those are the kind of things that I think people need to keep in perspective anytime you decide to check somebody else's bank account for a justification as to why they should be out there for your entertainment, even as they are paid well to provide entertainment. I completely understand that initial reaction. But as far as Treylon Burks goes, it looks like that is a positive development. He is a difference-making player in this offense. And as far as that goes, I think he's the most important player on the offense right now. Derek is a difference-making player. Derek is the star of the show. Derek is still at age 29 as of yesterday. Very happy 29th birthday. I believe we said that yesterday. Derek is at 29, still producing at a high level, and even more impressively, is he producing behind an offensive line that is hot trash for the larger part of the season. So, as far as this goes, though, I do think that Treylon Burks' presence on the field allows for more opportunities for Derrick Henry. It gives a higher level of higher degree of comfort for whomever is playing quarterback for the Titans right now. Even if, in the case of Malik Willis, Malik only had the opportunity to play one game with Treylon on the field, so maybe that's not a fair assessment. But in the one game, Treylon was targeted twice and had 0 catches. It was difficult to kind of get those two on the same page. I think that as far as Treylon Burks goes, I think he's incredibly important. And it kind of goes in the same line of thinking for AJ Brown. AJ Brown was far more difficult to replace last season and into this season than Derrick Henry was, right? Derrick Henry, they still found ways to run the ball without Derrick Henry on the field in 2021, but they could not really cobble together much of a semblance of their passing game without AJ Brown on the field. That's held true so far through the Treylon Burks experience, even if Treylon isn't the same level of player right now. But to know that have that be he's got a fairly good chance of going on Saturday night, which is all you can ask for at this point. Now let's talk about a more existential question, because I think this goes into This applies to a couple of different groups of Titans fans who seem to have split opinions on this thing. The question that I would like to ask you guys is this: if the Titans lose to the Jaguars in less than 48 hours from now, is the season a failure? That's a question that that producer Reed wrote down in our rundown tonight, and I looked at it and had to think about it for a hot second. Would the season be considered a failure if they lose to the Jags, given all the circumstances that brought them to that point, which would make 7 straight losses in a row, and likely, almost inevitably, unless they decide to all of a sudden expand the postseason, the way that there was some discussion around today with the different ways that they're trying to kind of re-level the playing field, given the Bills and Bengals will not be rescheduled. Let me know in the comment section on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch. Would you consider this season a failure if the Titans lose to the Jags on Saturday? While you do that, I'll remind you that there is no way that you will fail if you want to achieve your New Year's resolution of getting in better shape than TrueMav Fitness in the Gulch. TrueMav Fitness is the best workout that you will experience. I guarantee it. They have made such a difference in how I approach my workout routine. I was not somebody who had a workout routine prior to TrueMav Fitness, and they have made the experience so enjoyable for me because I have seen the progress that I specifically have been able to make, and so many others who use their boot camp style classes, their personal training, and of course, their open gym. They have all variety of ways for you to achieve your fitness goals. They're going to push you, but not to the point of overexertion, not to the point where you're uncomfortable. No workout in their group classes is ever recycled or repeated. It is a continually adjusting and adapting situation to make sure that your body does the same as you try to achieve your fitness goals. So get your first workout free at TrueMavFitness.com and check out any number of their membership options. So, would the season be considered a failure if the Titans were to lose to the Jags on Saturday night? Mike Vrabel spoke about this game, the significance of this game. It's the Titans' last day of work on the field was today, and obviously tomorrow will be a travel day for all of us. But this is what the head coach had to say.
Like, how much is the winning you guys have done the last few years and what you've been able to build in that locker room, how much does that matter, translate to a game like
Well, I don't think it matters, Joe. I think it matters, the wins, the losses. I think it's just, all really just comes down to how we play this week, and whatever we did last week or 3 weeks ago, whatever we did against Jacksonville. You have to, in this league, it's all about, that game and how that unfolds and what transpires and how you take care of the football and how you can make the corrections. I think, if we can do some things a little bit better, we'll give ourselves a chance to go win.
I think that's pretty important perspective, and I think, it doesn't need to be a constant reminder, but I do think that it is a reminder of how coaches and players approach an NFL season as opposed to how many of us view an NFL season. And I've had to adjust my worldview on this too. It's not about the cumulative result of what you've done to that point. It's really not even about like what they did against the the Cowboys on, a week ago tonight, or the Texans on Christmas Eve. It's about what they're capable of doing right now and how well they execute in this particular game. The 6-game losing streak, obviously, there's some commonalities. There's struggles all season long. There are some commonalities. But that does not necessarily apply unless that's the same kind of mistakes that they bring into this game, which there is reasonable evidence to suggest that they will still have struggles where it relates to pass protection and penalties. They've struggled to get pressure as of late, but they're hopeful that some additional time for those bodies of the guys that they rely on to create that 4-man pass rush will be able to give them a little bit of a renewed effort now that they've had a lot more time off than they have in quite some time. Would the season be considered a failure? Of course it would. You were on the precipice of a 3rd straight division title, something that this franchise has never accomplished before. You had a 4-game lead in the division, of which obviously they've since blown and would have blown even further should they hypothetically lose to Jacksonville on Saturday afternoon. Their first and foremost goal is to win the division, and they were very, very much on pace for that. There are some circumstances that are beyond their control. Some of them are very much within their control, and the result will still be the same if they don't find a way to pull this thing off. It's a really difficult task to expect them to just kind of flip a switch, roll it out. I mean, they're not rolling the ball out there without preparation. Obviously, they do as much preparation as humanly possible to get this thing off the ground each and every week, regardless of what the results end up being. But absolutely, the season would be considered a failure if this is the way, after petering out to this point in the season thus far, if they petered out even further with the Jags' first sweep of the Titans since 2005. That's the last time this thing has happened, and so we will see. We will see how this goes about. Let's see. Ravens did the same thing last year because of injury. Either way, having a chance to go to the playoffs is a plus. It does not say anything but YouTube user there, so we'll take that with a grain of salt. Losing is failure, no question. Jonathan Caverly says on YouTube, they said, let's see, need players you can lead to the water and they drink. I don't even know what the hell that means, Wesley James Sandquist. What on earth? What need players you can lead to the water and they drink? Like if what am I supposed to take Dennis Daly to a feeding trough and expect him not to false start on 4th and 5? Like, I don't necessarily, forgive me. Maybe there's an earlier comment that I missed and I don't have the full context for what the hell that is, whatever that is that means. But you'll have to expand upon that for me so I can get on the same page as you. Lord Gooney says this season was a failure when we let AJ Brown go, unfortunately. Well, but that's again, I think that speaks to a bit of a loser mentality. Obviously, it makes life a lot harder without AJ. It's made life considerably harder without AJ. But so you don't go into a season punting on the season unless you're a loser franchise. Now, this is not a loser franchise. It has not been in quite some time. It's they are coming up. They have been competitive now for the better part of a decade under the last two the current coaching staff, the last coaching staff, the general manager leadership of John Robinson while he was still in that role, and now whatever we move forward with, whatever they move forward with at this particular juncture. But I think that if you're looking at a season before it starts as a season that's lost, or even worse, honestly, you're looking at a season that's lost when you still have the opportunity to make the postseason with one game left to play, then I do think that speaks to a loser mentality. That if you think that way, I think you should be fortunate that your football team and your coaching staff doesn't think that way, because where would be the enjoyment in that? Where would be the entertainment in that? You'd rather them be competitive. You'd rather them care in a way that a lot of the sentiment recently has expressed a lack of care for the regular season, and a deeper level of care for the offseason. That's because you can't necessarily lose in the offseason, right? There's no quantifiable wins or losses in the offseason. It's just, new players. Can they help me? They can't help me, or they can't help me by the time we get to games. Who's to say? But everybody can be declared a winner in the offseason. That's why everybody likes transactions so much. It's bright, it's shiny, it's new, it's different. It gives you hope, even where, the results may end up being the same for all you know. The top 10 draft pick does not guarantee that you're going to be a better football team. Corey Davis was a top 10 draft pick. Jack Conklin was a top 10 draft pick. Jake Locker, for God's sakes, was a top 10 draft pick. And, those guys have had varying different degrees of success, but, to rely on some kind of, a draft pick or better draft positioning is going to guarantee that you're going to be a better football team in the coming seasons. No, there's no guarantee of that at all. There's no guarantee that you make the postseason either, but at least that's very much more in your control and much more ahead of you at this time. All right, let's do a weekend bounce back and get into a conversation about who needs to bounce back in sports this week. In the comment section on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and on Twitch, let me know who needs to bounce back. It could be the obvious. It could be the local professional football team, as many of you, I think, would be right to nominate them for. But we'll talk about it together right after I remind you that A to Z Sports Primetime is made possible by our guy, Gary Ashton, and the Ashton Real Estate Group of RE/MAX Advantage. Your dream address without the stress is what the Ashton team offers to you. They're going to put you in the position to succeed with the Intel Edge that only they provide. That Intel Edge helps you sell your home without any showings or staging, helps you find your next home in this red-hot Nashville real estate market, helps you win the buyer battle and cash in on your home equity right now. Everybody else doing the same shopping, looking at the same properties, but not maximizing their value. Not you. You're smart. You're going to go to GaryAshton.com. You're going to trust the team that your favorite teams trust. That's why the Ashton Real Estate Group of RE/MAX Advantage is the official real estate agent of the Nashville Predators and of me. So get your search started today for your dream address or sell your home for more. Don't sell without the intel at GaryAshton.com. So, who needs to bounce back in sports this week? Skip Bayless, pissing people off, says Steven1986 on Twitch. Chris Frazier says Willis. Well, listen, if Malik Willis has an opportunity to bounce back this weekend, that would mean that something has happened to Josh Dobbs, and that would mean that your football team is in a bad spot. So I think, the best bouncing back that Willis can do is bouncing back onto the bench. I think that, a lot of nominees for Dennis Daly. Dre Wilson simply says the Titans. Of course, he would be correct at this point. Recht says Dobbs or Woods. Dobbs is a real reasonable bounce back candidate. He played well, given the circumstances, but he still lost, right? He needs to be able to play. And he needs to be able to play at a higher level. They all need to be able to play at a higher level to try and get this thing accomplished. Alex says Kevin McCarthy, which is a very funny joke for anybody who is paying attention to anything outside of sports at this particular time. The former minority leader taking a few embarrassing L's here in the last couple of weeks, but for a different time and a different place. Jeff Fisher says Russell Tapley. I don't know what on earth Jeff would need to bounce back from. Titans Rossi says that's a good one. It was a pretty funny one. It made me giggle. Beverly says y'all are crazy tonight. Listen, I appreciate when you guys can have some fun with that, because a lot of times, like if I was to make a joke like that, I don't know. I want to be respectful of everybody, so I'll leave those kind of jokes to you guys at this point. But I'll tell you who needs to bounce back. Texas A&M basketball, because the clips that were coming out of this huddle last night, they really, really pissed me off.
But there's a fly in the ointment. Todd Golden told moments ago that the game will not start on time because Texas A&M's uniforms were left at the team hotel. So, rush hour traffic being what it is in Gainesville, somebody's got to scoop back there, pick up the jerseys and shorts, and come back to Exact Tech. And until then, Todd Golden and his Gators will get some more shots up.
Now, equipment staff doesn't make a lot of money. They have a lot of responsibilities, and I understand that there can be some missteps from time to time. But if you forget all of the team's equipment ahead of a game, and you show up at the game without any of the equipment, and you have to go back through rush hour traffic to get the equipment and try to get the game off the ground, then yeah, it probably ought to cost you your job in that spot. It's a big bounce back, a literal bounce back for the Texas A&M basketball team. Among several bounce back candidates in sports at this time. Let's see. Scrapman says my joke was better. Well, yeah, but was it better? Was it a better joke if I didn't see it? Does a tree falling in the woods make a sound if nobody was there to see it? So, it's not your fault. It's just, it just happened to be not. I saw that comment instead of the actual comment that you made. So apologies if I missed it. Rex says that's funny. I'll be in a mental hospital if I ever got a Twitter account. Yeah, there's a lot of mental sanity that is lost on the particular Bird app. But you know what? It's just got to find a way. Mental toughness is something that is required of all of us on the internet, and very regularly do people not display mental toughness on the internet. You guys are always the best. It's been another enjoyable week with you guys. I appreciate you spending your time here as always. We will do the Titan Game Day morning show, 11 a.m. Central Time, from the studio before I take off to go to Jacksonville. So you will see that on Saturday before the game. Obviously, excuse me, Austin and Zach will have pregame, halftime, and postgame coverage. No prime time on Saturday because it's an evening game, number one, and because we don't do prime time on Saturday. But we'll certainly be back in Nashville by Sunday morning to talk about whatever the results of this game may be. Could be off season, could be could be playoffs, could be just about anything in between. But have a great rest of your evening. Have a great weekend. If I don't talk to you tomorrow on the radio show, starts at 10 a.m. on 104.5 The Zone. We'll be talking about the College Football National Championship game with the great Mike Felder of Stadium and Coach Dave McGinnis of Titans Radio, who is also a different level of greatness. Will break down the Titans and the Jags matchup with us at 11:20. So I hope to have you on the radio show from 10 to 1 on 104.5 The Zone. But if not, talk to you Sunday right here on A to Z Sports Primetime.
Ain't no sunshine when she's gone. It ain't warm when she goes away. Ain't no sunshine when she's gone. And she's always gone too long. Anytime she goes away.